When we think about the prison system, we think about all the many criminals that are getting their just dues and the people who had the crimes committed to them are getting their closure because they know the person that committed the crime is away. But somewhere along the line, our criminal justice system has lost focus on true crimes that are being committed and people who are like, look, for instance, child support. If you were to get locked up for child support, you would basically be locked up with everybody else, taken away from your kids, and really no investigation whatsoever proving that you haven't been in your child's life other than you failed to keep documentation of what you did for the children. But they end up going to prison and what is ultimately become criminal college where there is no reform and prison has become big business where you could where most prisons have some way of profiting from the prisoners being there, either industrial or just room and board. The profit margin has become so ridiculous that it is virtually impossible to have a system of checks and balances when their moral fabric is built off of the push of the dollar and how much they can bring in and how many people they can arrest. Now we have, for example, the case of the young man who was wrongfully accused by a police officer. The police officer ends up doing time, but in the meantime, uh, he was wrongly accused. And in the end of this little documentary, they become friends, but how many police officers are doing this, trying to meet their quota, locking people up for things that really require reform instead of incarceration? The when you commit a crime, you have so many options of community service, from Walmart to Target to the health department to the police department to daycares. There are so many ways that they can use you if you don't have the money. Prison reform has gotten so low with the things that they could take. They decided to go ahead and start on organs. In 1990, Missouri passed a law that it would consider a inmate selling his organs for a lesser sentence. And these are the things that we're dealing with. These are the things that question our humanity. And these are the things that question where our government is going and who truly are we following. To the people even putting out fires for $1 a day or whatever the means is, 10 cents a day, a penny a day, a penny an hour, slave labor, forced into slave labor, then you exit into a world that has forgotten you, and that has gone on without you, and you have no sense of this world around you, and you are forced to adapt to it even though there is no place for you to get a job or live or even carry on as a citizen. And the overwhelming amount of minorities who fit into this category, regardless of the fact that most minorities or all minorities in America make up 26%, but yet and still they make up 90% of most prison systems. And the history of our racial tension that brings us to the question of the intentions of the incarceration. And is there still backlash from slavery that is a system that is built inside of all of us, the de facto segregation of which no one wants to talk about. De facto segregation is when segregation continues on outside of government rule. And we still deal with this today where you see in prisons how everything is segregated and the gangs are allowed to segregate themselves just for peace. But this is the same segregation that they adapt to when they leave prison. And you wonder why they have no concept of diversity because there is no concepts of diversity in prison. It is built on segregation. Their pods are built on segregation. They want to punish you. They put you in a place where you are segregated from your people. The whole prison system, the judicial system, entirely has to be revisited because there are new laws and new organizations that are popping up that are taking hold. Like, okay, for example, the 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime, but it shall be subjected to jurisdiction of the U.S. And Congress has the right to stress this or, change it according to the times. But yet and still, nothing has changed since the Jim Crow era. Nothing has changed as far as segregation and as far as these private sectors that are popping up with their private prisons, with their manufactured agendas to produce things to sell or produce people as labor, and it's not being monitored by the U.S. government. That is a direct violation of the 13th Amendment. And most people end up unjustly accused. Now we have the Fifth Amendment. You have the right to a formal indictment, a formal arrest. Those people who are killed on the street or that are murdered after they commit a crime, yes, they commit a crime, but they still have the right to a fair trial. Now, police officers are saying, "Oh, my life felt threatened. I felt threatened by this and this and that." But it is their job to come in threatening situations and handle them appropriately without malice or without their own judgment of things. And it is much easier to wound a person than it is to kill them. You have to actually really be trying to kill someone. And if you shoot someone and you do no attempts of trying to save their life, then that is just like murder.
You might not see nothing. You're supposed to be visible. You might not see anything, but you go hunting, like bounty hunting for an arrest. Locking up some old guy, some homeless guy, finding somebody who's riding a bicycle on the sidewalk, who's spitting, and you bring him in.
The problem is when you go hunting, when you put any type of numbers on a police officer to perform, we are going to go to the most vulnerable.
The most vulnerable.
Of course, we're going to go to LGBT community. We're going to go to the black community. We're going to go to those people that have no vote, that have no power. If we start doing what we're doing in Midtown Manhattan, a phone call to the mayor's office is going to be made. That's going to be the end of it.
We're the predators, they're the prey. The worst thing you can have is a police officer that needs an arrest for the month.
So you're all minorities. How does that make you feel?
It's horrible.
This is something coming from the top that trickles its way down, and this is why we're all here today.
We first interviewed Officer Edwin Raymond last month. He says he's been recording conversations with NYPD officials for the past 2 years in an effort to prove alleged quotas and retaliation against cops who don't rack up numbers.
They're breaking the law.
Raymond's claims elicited this expletive from the police commissioner.
Bullshit is my response to that.
The commissioner insists his policies are focused on the quality of arrests and summonses, not the quantity. The officer's attorney.
Is the commissioner lying?
Yes. Commissioner Bratton is lying.
How can you prove this?
I can prove it with testimony, with recordings, with documents.
All they want us to do is go out there and lock them up. They told us it's easier to get numbers out here because you work in this type of community.
Are you arresting for stuff that you shouldn't be arresting for?
Well, that's why we're here. We don't do it. We refuse, and because of that, we are retaliated against.
Because you're not harassing people, you're being punished. And it doesn't make for a great work environment because they want you to harass.
And these are the police officers that we're dealing with, and no one's addressing these issues. But we're going to go on with the 5 because you have the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to an indictment, which we just you have the right to double jeopardy, which means that you cannot be tried for the same thing twice, which is happening frequently. Now, people are frequently committing these crimes over and over again, but this is why you have to combine the cases, and there has to be a combination of the cases. But this also leads us to no self-incrimination. Now, self-incrimination now has changed forms. Now, they have the right to set you up in a situation to see if you fail. And then when you fail, even though they created the situation, you probably wouldn't even be in the situation if they had not created it. In what form does that not become self-incrimination? When someone sets up a situation for you, when the government sets up a situation for you to fail, when does that not become incrimination? When does that not? And then you know your rights, and they put you in a room and deny you water, deny you this, and deny you that, just because they have the right to hold you for 48 hours with no cause, no nothing. I mean, that is basically stripping us of all of our constitutional rights when it comes to due process, which is also part of the Fifth Amendment, which is the right to go through the process to be indicted for something. To go through the process, you have the right to a lawyer. You have a right to this. You have a right to that. Now, people tend to get public lawyers, but the public lawyers people tend to get public lawyers, but the public lawyers turn out to be public pretenders, of which they work with the prosecutors for plea bargains, of which people have no idea is effective, that it's going to affect them like that. But their lawyer is suggesting that they go ahead and settle because they're not used to fighting, or they just don't even feel like it. They have so many cases on their plate, they don't even feel like going through the system. And the amount of people that have to come and show up for these amnesty days, and how these amnesty days, and we'll have the lines wrapped around the block, and they are all filled with minorities. There are so many flaws to the system, of which, including the government, of which needs to be readdressed. Now, our constitutional rights, our Bill of Rights, are not slowly being taken, they are taken. We just don't know it yet until we get to that point of which we rely on those rights, and we realize that those rights are already gone. They were taken in 9/11. Like no excessive bail, the 8th Amendment, no excessive bail or fine imposed or cruel and unusual punishment. The excessive bail, the woman who ended up winning $188 million, and she ended up having enough to get her husband out of prison. But then, he's trust and believe he's been serving time all this time. But once she gets the money to bail him out, she goes to the prison, and it's been all over the news. She's won the lottery, so her bail has been raised. But the bail was already set, so it being raised is just a prime example of excessive fine. A prime example. And the way it is these days, I wouldn't even pay the fine. If I had to go to prison, I would just go and keep my money, because it doesn't matter who you pay or what you pay, you're still going to go through the process. So you're better off keeping your money, and that is the difference between black cultures and other cultures, that they pay the men, they pay so much to bail themselves out and try to get a lesser sentence, instead of thinking about how their family could use that money to be, to do better. But, in the moment, you really just want your family back, so you really don't even think about it. And we're so used to purchasing our own freedom that it's almost a tradition for black people. But also in the 8th Amendment is no cruel and unusual punishment. Now, this goes with national sovereignty. We would never allow our own people to go to another country and be subjected to another person's government But this is happening right now with Guantanamo Bay. How we went over there and we created our own prison. We created our own prison system of which we can punish, and it was cool and it was unusual. And we have all these injustices that we have going on within ourselves, within our own prison system to build another one in another country. It's just absurd. At what point do we say that we are becoming worse than Hitler's Holocaust? At what point do we say we have become unhumane when it comes to our prison system and our prison reform system and our children that are being lost? And as a result, at what point do we re-examine the prison system and say it's time to rewrite it in regards and to reestablish laws that actually help the rehabilitation process? These are all things we need to start asking ourselves.
Prisoner 134190684.
Well, it's lockdown time now. Let me get back to my cell. But hopefully I was able to drop a little knowledge on y'all. It's not too often we get a chance to explain how it looks from this point of view. Thank you for listening.